welcome to today's project. We are going to create a lidded box, great for Christmas gifts, chocolates, things like that. So just when you need something small, it will hold a small gift. The other day I think I put a little container of, I think it was hankies or something like that. I did use a couple of these already for gifts. So this one here, it's pretty simple. It's very effective because it uses one sheet of cardstock, a small amount of DSP, and a basic stamped image with a sentiment. So it opens all in one piece. So there's not a lid that will come on and off and make it difficult to get on and off. And it does have this little thumb hole to make it easier to lift up as well. So let's get started. Like I said, you need one sheet of cardstock for this. Today we're going to use Real Red. Okay, and I'm going to bring in my cutting tool and we are going to cut at 10 by 8 1/4. So I'll just get rid of this one for the moment. So 8 1/4 is not quite enough by 10. I must have to check those measurements again. Sorry, we'll do 10 by 8, which is a bit trickier. By 8, there we go. So the first thing we want to do is we are going to score. Now I have got a template here, which I will post a bit later, particularly seeing I don't think the measurements are quite right, so bear with me. We are going to do a 1.5 inch score all the way around the outside to begin with. So this kind of just makes it easier. So 1.5. Using our scoring tool on our trimmer. Now I'm going to want to go to here on the landscape orientation. I have done my 2, which are, 1.5. Got to concentrate. I almost made a mistake there on a couple of them. That's okay. 1.5. Okay. There we go. That's better. So then we want to score at 4 1/4. 5 3/4. There we go, 5 3/4. Get this one out of the way, and we're going to just fold all those down with our bone folder. Flip it over, and along we go. I'm just going to burnish each of the folds. It just makes it easier when we're putting the box together, and it'll sit a little bit flatter as well. Almost done. Okay, now I like to do my background stamping now, and like I said, I use Versamark for this one. For this one, I think I'm going to use the Versamark as well, but you can use tone on tone. Now I'm going to use this stamp, which is from the, I'm going to get it wrong. That's it, Words of Cheer. I keep getting Words of Cheer and Delivering Cheer mixed up. So what we're going to do is we're just going to ink up and we're going to stamp. So we're going to need to stamp this whole inside panel as well as some of these, but the corners, it doesn't matter so much because they actually get folded in. Doesn't have to be perfect, and I'm actually going to bring in some smaller stamps to fill in some gaps because these don't line up perfectly, and that's okay. With Versamark, I find you need to really press it hard to get a good impression, so that it becomes quite dark and clear in your stamping. And you do want to go off the edges just a little bit. It kind of creates a DSP sort of feel to your cardstock, so that it looks like it's been bought like that. So like I said, we will come back and fill in the gaps with some of the smaller stamps in a minute. So these little boxes are really handy. And if you did want to alter the size, all you need to do is alter the width. So instead of it being 10 inches, for example, you might make it 8, 9, 12 even, if you can get 12 by 12 sheet of cardstock, and it will just create a longer or shorter box. Okay, so let's bring in a slightly smaller stamp. This is from the same set, and we start filling in some gaps. Versamark's probably one of my favourite inks because it is so versatile. I probably need a new one. Mine's starting to look a little bit sad because I have accidentally added ink onto it by mistake. So, whoops, that's okay. It happens, and because it's such a white pad that you use, it does stand out a little bit. So another one. I think this is from a different set. We're just adding just a couple of these because I'm not pressing quite so hard because this one does kind of stand out. It's a little holly leaf. I'll try making it fairly even all the way around. Like I said, these corner tabs, the corners, you don't need to worry about stamping because you're going to tuck those into the box. Almost there. And one more maybe. I've got some little dots. Oops. Little tiny dots. I think they're supposed to be holly or something, and they're just good to fill in all those little gaps. Just lots and lots of little dots. You, of course, when you're stamping the bigger image, which probably takes less time, you can just add in, or overlap them, I should say. And that way you're going to get full coverage of your background pretty quickly. And you don't have to be too fussy. You can have a few little blank bits, but we just want to cover ourselves for the most part so it looks consistently inked all over. And it doesn't take too long, really. And there's a bit of fun in this. It's very creative, a bit therapeutic, really. Just remembering that we do go over the edges all the time. and that just creates that flow of it being seamless. Just realise I'm just taking this a little off camera and you probably can't see it. But yeah, you could easily use some overlapping. It's probably not going to matter too much with that particular image. It's a very pretty image, that one. And we're going to use that on the top of the box to colour in as well. And all my friends know that I'm a little bit passionate about colouring in, and I am determined early next year to get a few of them colouring, and they're going to master it, whether they like it or not. Basically because it's so much fun, and it's something that it's not hard to do, not a lot of supplies that you can take with you wherever you go. If you're going on holidays or whatever, take a few stamped images and some colouring equipment, and you're done, and you just have to put them onto a very basic card. All right, I think all of our stamping is now done. Background stamping, and hopefully you can see that. Okay, so the other thing we want to do is a little bit of trimming. So we are going to trim up these two tabs here, down these two tabs here, and then we're going to miter them in. This one's a little tricky, so I'm going to leave the template on the side when I do that one, because we're going to cut in and then up and miter, and I'll show you a trick for that. So I'll take out my scissors. Now these ones here I have had forever and a day, so they are my trusted ones, and I do probably need to try to invest in another pair, but I'm a little bit of a stickler for what works. So anyway, so you're gonna trim straight up that score line, as straight as you can, because this becomes a very edgy box, and then you're just going to miter in just a little bit and just take the smallest amount off. Turn it around. So it doesn't matter which orientation, obviously. This is, once you flip it, you can do the next piece as well. So there we have, if you can see it, our two mitered, trimmed in sections there. And now we're going to do these ones. So we're going to go in on this here. So in. And in. And I have to admit, sometimes I don't trust that my cutting is straight, so I will use the trimmer. It's not the easiest. Now these two flaps here can actually be folded in whilst we do the next part. So we actually are going to go up here, and then miter it in. So having these little flaps folded makes it just easier. So go up, slow and steady wins the race. So yes, that one does get inked up a little bit more than the others, and my scissors are stuck on my hands. And there we go, there's one. And on this side, so I'm going to actually flip it over because it's easier for me to see and to cut, being a right-hander. And there we go. And mitered. There we are. Now putting the box together itself is really simple. So we're going to get some glue. I like to use the glue. I'm not a big fan of tape, although people who knew me many years ago would laugh at that because I used to be a big fan of tape. So I'm going to flip it over, and these little tabs is where I'm going to add some glue. And then this white Tombow glue is fantastic because it doesn't take long to dry. So I'm literally going to hold them there for just a few seconds each. So I'm going to line up the corners and hold. And line up this corner and hold. And obviously it's still wet, but it's a little bit easier. I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to do the same on these two. Sometimes I feel like I get lucky if that lines up exactly there. Doesn't matter if it doesn't. Honestly, you're the only one that's going to really be looking that carefully at the box. Hold it. Now, these two here are going to get glued, and when we lift this box up like so, they're going to be glued to that inside piece there. Don't have to, but this just makes the box sit better. It can come all the way open like that, and if that's what you would like, that's fine. But I find this just sits a little bit better. And we lift it up, just hold it for a second. It sets so quickly. Once it's on there, oops, and then same with this one, whoa, and line it up, like so, and hold it on there for a second, and there we go. Now, that becomes our lidded box, like that. What we're going to do now is, before we do it, is I'm actually going to use a really old punch. So I'm going to punch out a circular piece. When I say old, it's not that old. So I'm going to use the classic label die. And I'm going to just pop it all the way up so I get a little bit of a lip. Just try and center it either side as best you can. Eyeball it, that's fine. And punch. And that just punches that little tiny shape out. You can use any sort of circular style punches just to give that little bit of thumb room when you open it like that. Okay, so that's the box. That's the basic construction of the box. And I find if you open and close it several times, it becomes easier and easier each time before you actually gift it. So our next job is to colour in. So this was the original one. And it has this little image, and I'm going to colour that in a second. And it is popped up with some dimensional dots. This is a very basic piece of DSP that has been matted with white, and I'll grab a piece of DSP to go on here, and then a strip with some sentiment, and it's been embossed on that one as well. So what I'll do very quickly is I'll probably fast forward this section of the video just so you can see me colouring and then putting the rest of the box together. Today I am going to use in this sentiment happy and then add a strip underneath. I just wanted to add that extra word. Really love these die cut words, so yeah, that features in lots of my projects. So I'm going to grab some Stampin Blends today. That's my choice for colouring, and we're going to just pretty much mimic this. So it is a real red with a touch of cherry cobbler on the edges of the poinsettias petals, and also on the inside sections where there's a shadow. This one here is the Old Olive, and I have thrown in here a little bit of dark granny apple green as well. And that's for all of the greenery. And these little sprays of, I don't know what they're called, the little dotty, little ball kind of greenery, I guess you'd call it. I have used, I think it's Pool Party on that one, and it's just ever so slightly coloured. You can't really even tell. I don't know if you can tell on that one or not. So yeah. So that, just to add that little bit of extra dimension, you could use, and I actually might use today, a very light, say, grey granite or something like that. So I'll just grab my pens. Good. So I'm not going overboard with my colouring. Sometimes I use multiple pens, but not today. So here we go. I'll start with the poinsettias. In that one there, light real red to begin with. And I'm going to just pretty much colour in the whole thing. And then swap. So it doesn't take so long. So pretty much go around the outside. And I keep telling everybody it does not have to be perfect. Don't worry about it being perfect. There is a stamp that coordinates with this that kind of is this size, and you can use it, but I have tried that and I'm just not happy with the result that I got from that. So yeah, so this is what I tend to do, go around the outside. Now yes, the brush end is a little trickier. Don't worry if you get a few white gaps, because you will be coming back over the top. Now I know everybody colours differently, and I have done a colouring series, a 6-part series on YouTube, just basically where you watch me colour, layer colours. And that's the great thing about the Stampin Blends, is the layering aspect. So the next one I'm using is the dark real red, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to use it on a lot of my edges like so. So you want to leave some that doesn't have that, and the middle ones I'm going to colour in completely. So this is where your layering comes in, and honestly if you look at this, it is pretty messy, but you've got to trust the process. Hard, I know. We just want a bit of dimension, it's a bit of colour. This is not it's not the be all and end all of the project. It's not supposed to be, yes, it's a main feature, but it's not supposed to be something that you can dwell over. And this is where I was saying I use a little bit of the dark cherry cobbler, and I use it quite sparingly, I have to admit. So this goes right on the tips, just a little tiny bit, like so. And it does blend in, so it's not like it's going to stand out too much. And then on these sections around the middle, which it does stand out more. Okay, and go around. And then because that's a white section, a whiter section, because of your layering, a lighter section, it kind of really stands out. You can see there's no rhyme nor reason to my colouring. Sometimes I start on the outside, sometimes I start on the inside sections. It doesn't really matter, as long as you get all of them. And you know what, if you don't, it will stand out. You will pretty much notice at the end, oh hang on, that bit's not quite the same as all the others. So that's my red colouring. Let's do the green. So it's kind of the same process, except that the granny apple green I'm only using sparingly on a couple of these fern-like branches. I don't know if anyone else is, I have a real issue with this particular granny apple green. My brush end has always been really soft in comparison to everyone else's, like all the others, so yeah, it's just a little odd. Now I just go back and add a couple of dots of the darker, and then I'm going to go, like I said, this is Old Olive in the light, and I'm just going to colour in very quickly. Scribble. And that's the good thing about these images, is that black outline kind of hides a multitude of sins in some respects, because like, and I said, you know, you don't have to colour every single little tiny bit. There can be a couple of little white bits. They look like highlights when you look at the images. So those little photo bits, and now these ones. Now these holly leaves at the moment look like they're the same as everything else, but that's okay. With the layering, we get those even darker. Give it a second to dry, and then come back in with a second coat for for the holly. And now for the dark Old Olive. And we just want to add a little line or touch on all these ones. Not too much. Like so. And this is where then we're going to add lots to our holly leaf. But I'm going to start with that middle where the veins are. And again, it's about layering. Give it a second and we do it again, going out a little bit further. So you can still see the lighter highlights, I guess you would say, in that. Last thing we're going to do, because we're not going to dwell too much longer, is to add a little bit of grey granite to these little, I'd love to know what they are actually, because I see them in Christmas bouquets as well. It's like, don't know what they are, but they are kind of cute. Okay, we are done with our colouring. So that one there is going to be popped up on here. I'm just going to grab my DSP to add to that. Today's DSP is one of the free ones that came in our last celebrations. So I'm just going to mat that one. I'm going to use Old Olive. To mat it. I'm just going to cut it off camera. But you're basically just wanting the smallest of borders around it. So I don't even measure, I actually eyeball and just cut just to ensure that I'm getting just that very small amount. There we go. Like so. We're almost done. Just going to pop on like that with my glue and some dots. So when I'm using mats, I like to add like this first and make a little matted section before I add it to my project. And that glue sets so quickly, but you do have a little tiny wiggle room. There we go. And it's going to go on. I'm going to put it on this end. Like that. A little image we're going to pop up. Using some of these edge pieces, don't let them go to waste. And here. Teeny tiny bits. You don't need tons. This is not, even if you do post this, you're going to be posting it in a bigger box anyway, because it's not going to have to sit flat. Now, whichever way you would like to have it orientated, I'm thinking like that, and pop it down. Here's my word happy. Now, it does stand out a fair bit, but I do want to add, what do I want to add to it? Probably a bit of Old Olive. Might do the grey granite, actually, because that's the colour I used. So, grey granite ink. And a little blending brush. I tend to use this as one of my blending mats, or the silicone mat works really well too. So I'm just going to add it to the bottom half. Always tap off, and then nice circular motions. And it will take a second to build up. And we just keep going round and round, tap, tap, round and round, round, tap, tap. And what you think is not going to be much actually creates a fairly good shadow, which looks really good on a project. It just adds that extra layer instead of a flat word. The blending brushes, which I have to admit I've got several different brands, because I've had them for quite a while before they came out with Stampin' Up, but they really are a great tool to have. Just got to be careful. And then I just go back and add a little bit extra to really blend them in like that. Put that to the side. You can see there that it creates that beautiful shadow. This is going to go up on here, and again, this is where my little tiny edge pieces are going to come in handy, because I'm going to pop it on here. So I'm going to need, on the last probably 2 letters, the P and the Y, I'm going to need some of these dimensional ones. And I don't need a lot. So let's trim some of those back, just so we've got a little bit. So the P and the Y, which are these two here. And they just fit. Got to make sure that they squeeze on there. Don't need a lot, to be honest, so that that will stick on. And then these bits here, a little bit of glue, just stick it on our image. Okay. Before I stick that one down, you can kind of see it poking through, so I'll just squeeze it back a little with my scissors, poke it back. And again, no one's probably going to notice except for me. Okay. And just make sure that the rest is fairly straight before I stick it down. There we go. Happy. The only other thing to add now is the word Christmas, which I have over here. Oh, actually, no, I might change my mind. Of course, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to get my grey granite, and I'm going to use this sentiment, which is the same sentiment here, happy wishes to you and yours, but this time I'm going to trim it so that it just says wishes to you and yours, because I've already got the word happy. So I'm going to ink that one up, stick it on my little tiny bit of cardstock here, and then trim it back with my scissors. Perfect. I'm not the straightest cutter, I have to admit. Okay. That's not too bad. So that can sit on there, or we can pop it underneath. I like it to sit on top, I think. So that means just a little bit of glue. So, and we just layer it on top. Hopefully a little bit of that glue got on the happy. Like so. And there we go. Happy wishes to you and yours. And we are done. So there is my lidded box. thank you for joining me. Hopefully you get a chance to give that a go. Making these kind of things are really good fun, especially at this time of year. But you could do one for a birthday or a thank you and fill it with some chocolates or something like that. So it's really good. All right, thanks everyone.